I am going to read out an article from yesterday's Metro newspaper. It's not very long, so bear with me. And then I want to discuss some of the fallacies around the subject as I see it. Okay, rapper jailed for life after knife murder outside club. This is the Metro dated May the 22nd, 2020. Doesn't say who the report's by. Teenage rapper who stabbed one man to death and seriously injured three others in a rampage outside a nightclub was handed a life sentence yesterday. Vasilius Ofogeli, known as Scarsape, that's SCARZ8, like the number 8TH, had been convicted of murdering student Andre Bent, on August 25th last year. The killer, then just 16, had been at the Gallery Club in Maidstone, Kent, in the entourage of Grime star Mostak. Two of the group started fighting as they left, and this led to a brawl with others joining in. Amid the melee, Offagelli stabbed all four victims in the space of 73 seconds with a large hunting knife, either while they were running away or lying on the ground. Mr. Bent, 21, the cousin of S Club 7 star Bradley McIntosh, suffered an 8-inch chest wound and died at the scene. His girlfriend had planned to tell him that day that she was pregnant. North Londoner Offagelli, 17, will only be eligible for parole after 20 years, the Old Bailey heard. Firstly, about that sentencing, somewhat surprising. It's actually quite a stiff sentence, which is it's good. I would say that's definitely a warranted sentence. This guy has shown no remorse for his actions. He was even reported to be gloating about it, saying he should have killed more. From he was penning lyrics in his cell. Clearly, he's a dangerous killer, and that was a justified sentence. I'm somewhat surprised because often with young offenders, he was under 18 at the time. Um, they get a tap on the wrist. I've been pretty vocal about my thoughts on how that is often dealt with. This on this occasion, it was a justified sentence, but only eligible for parole after 20 years. I hope that is really instilled. I'd like to see more of that. Good. So that's justice. But let's talk about grime, right? Um, this is something that really bugs me because I think there is a massive amount of dishonesty around this. The BBC done a piece on this last year. Is Grime star to blame for is Grime music to blame for the rise in crime? And the sort of comments there, the sort of denials and apologists really got me worked up because it's just complete nonsense for people to try and disassociate this grime genre and especially the subgenre of drill with violent gang activity. It is fundamentally disingenuous to say, "Oh, it's got they're just the messengers. It's just an art form." It really makes me angry because I think that it's denying the obvious. Um, I mean, there's a real contradiction here because this is the sort of narrative, this is the sort of mantra that you will hear from either grime artists themselves or their fans. They say, "Oh, don't blame the music, blame the government, blame the police." So blame government cuts, blame police numbers. It's all their fault. And yet grime stars like to boast of their success within the industry. I mean, within the R&B industry. The whole thing is about being egotistical and being, you know, the biggest name on the scene. So it's very egotistical at its core. And yet when it comes to responsibility, they wash their hands of any responsibility. So there's a fundamental contradiction there. You cannot on one hand boast about your influence and how big a name you are, whatever, and then simultaneously say, "Oh, but you can't blame me for knife crime." Here's the thing that really, really bugs me, and it's this dishonesty. We have seen cases where the prosecution and the presiding judge actually used grime videos as evidence in murder trials. I believe there was a case in Manchester a couple of years ago where that's exactly what happened because the video had actually been used to stir up a turf war. This is what happens. So anyone who thinks lyrics like "I'm going to shank him up," referring to a gang rival, isn't a threat. I just find it utterly staggering. Anyone with a straight face can claim this is just an art form. And it might be a form of expression, but it's a very toxic one that, in my view, really poisons society. I'm sick and tired of this lazy, ignorant argument that musicians have no responsibility. But I'm reluctant actually to call them musicians. As far as I'm concerned, they're swaggering thugs. And I think one reason there isn't more vocal opposition to grime and drill is because most of the artists are young black men. Hence, there's this notion that if you criticize it, you're being racist, even though young black men are often the main victims of knife violence. And those who say, oh, well, it's just beef among themselves, they're missing the point. What these people do is they bring gang war to our streets. We saw the consequences the other day when an innocent young woman in Blackburn was murdered in the crossfire between two gangs. And it happened, I remember studying a case in Birmingham when I was doing my journalism course at Wolverhampton. The two young women who were killed in crossfire between two gangs in Birmingham in 2003. It was quite a high profile case. So that notion that, they just hurt each other, I don't accept that. These people wouldn't think twice about hurting an innocent people if they looked at them the wrong way. I mean, I cannot understand how people can't see it. And this lazy, stupid, ignorant argument, and I'm sorry, but it really makes me angry when people make excuses for this. They try to make it out like it's just another. I got into a lengthy debate about this yesterday with on a thread, and this guy was actually trying to compare grime today to opera. He was coming out with something about castration happening in opera circles. I don't know what he was going on about, really, but I just think it's such a phony thing to try and normalize this. Like swaggering criminals. And this is the thing, show me one grime star who doesn't have a criminal record. Every time I read Grime Star, it's almost always for being arrested or being in jail for drug dealing or for stabbing someone or for murdering someone. These are bad people. So I've seen this ludicrous argument. Oh, well, if we take away the music, if we try to censor that or whatever, then we're not giving them a voice. A voice to do what? To threaten people? Freedom of expression comes with responsibility. It's always been the way. And I think those who try to normalize this and say it's just another form of another genre of music, um, they sort of strike me as extreme libertarians. They basically would probably be the same people that advocate all drugs be legalized, no regulations whatsoever. That this mentality that there should be no limits on anything because hey man, it's all freedom. Is let people do what they want. But an ordered society has to have rules and regulations. There's a good reason why many radio stations won't play this poison, and that's what I see it. That's how I see it. And yeah, I've seen enough of these videos to know what I'm talking about. You cannot tell me that four young guys with masks over their face, brandishing knives, you cannot tell me that's a harmless form of expression. It's just delusional to try and normalize that. And I'm well aware that every genre of music has had its controversies. I mean, of course, when Elvis Presley first came out, a lot of radio stations censored him because of the supposed sexual innuendo that was going on there. But, you can find examples of other genres in controversy, rock feuds or certainly drug usage and promotion of drug usage is rampant throughout many other genres. But I do think that the evidence shows that there is something uniquely toxic about what drill encompasses. Look at the lyrics. Look at what it involved. What we are talking about here is literally gang members promoting their activity. I just think it's a very sloppy argument to say, oh, well, they're just messengers, they're just telling it like it is. They're not saying this is our lives, it's very depressing, and we need to we need to get out of this lifestyle. They're actively promoting it as a good thing. This isn't sort of within the rap industry, I've mentioned this before, you have some songs, some artists who have a poignant message. I mean, I always thought Gangsta's Paradise was powerful because it was actually speaking out against the glamorizing of gang lifestyle. I mean, the lyrics were, I'm 23 now, but will I live to see 24? The way things are going, I don't know, right? So I can recognize that within the rap genre, there is some poignant and important messages. But I'm sorry, I've no respect for drill or grime, as far as I'm concerned. And these people demand respect. They say, "Oh, when is the mainstream music industry going to accept us?" Maybe when you start acting like civilized human beings and not threatening to knife your opponent, not threatening to knife people who disrespect you, man, or whatever the vernacular is. I'm not going to imitate it. I'll just, can't. But I just find it profoundly depressing, and it's the apologists I really have a problem with. These people who just think it's just another form of music, they're deluded and they're denying the obvious. I've even seen, I've even seen fans of the genre basically acknowledge that, come on, like in the video that we're interviewing some grime artists who were saying, oh, well, it's just an avenue to express our feelings. The guy had a scar on his face. So my issue is that this is part of gangland culture. So you cannot say with a straight face that grime music or drill music is totally harmless, but you recognize gang culture is a bad thing. Answer that question. If you recognize that gang culture is a bad thing because it's crime, it pollutes our society. If you recognize that's a bad thing, then how can you with a straight face say, oh, but the music's harmless? It's just a very naive and sloppy argument, in my opinion, to say that music has no influence. Yet simultaneously say, oh, this particular grime star is rising or whatever. But how many times do we hear rapper shot dead in the case of the United States? It's such a cliche. I saw one study showing that something like 51% of all rappers between the ages of, I forget the precise figures now, but 51% have been shot. This is a culture that is intrinsically linked to crime. And I think it's just delusional to try and suggest otherwise. Now, people might throw back at me, oh, but Nathan, what about mob films? Don't they promote crime? Well, I would say it depends on the film. They're not all the same. Some of them are intelligent, you know. Others, I think, are a bit exploitative. It really depends on the film. I mean, I would say, for example, Road to Perdition. It's it's a quasi mob film set in the Great Depression. That's not glorifying crime. If anything, that really shows how it's in the story. If you've seen the film, it's about a father who's involved in the mob. One of the few roles where Tom Hanks actually plays a semi-villain. Um, it shows the trigger effect that has on his family. I wouldn't say that's glorifying crime, but the point about drill, it is literally. It's almost laughable that people would defend this. It is literally gang members promoting their activity. Now, that's insulting to victims of their innocent victims, people who get caught up in either the crossfire of gang feuds or are terrorized by these thugs. And I'm not interested in political correctness. I call a thug a thug. If you're going around carrying a knife, if you're wearing an intimidating sort of mask, you're a thug. And I really think it is naive and just ignorant to try and say that this is just another form of music. It really, really isn't. When you look at the implications of what these videos are about, when you look at the culture that is intrinsic to it, It's just delusional to try and normalize it. And as for the free speech argument, well, put it this way, would you allow a terrorist to openly threaten to blow up infidels? No, it'd be a terrorist threat. So why should grime stars, grime artists, get to openly, in through their lyrics, threaten other gang members and thus bring gang war to our streets? I fully support any radio station or network that refuses to play this music because they've done nothing to earn it. You know, they're demanding respect, but the criminals. And if you could show me one who's not a criminal, if you could show me a grime star who's actually trying to do something productive, you know, he's trying to get other young men away from a life of crime and saying, look, it's not worth it, that might be a different matter. But my problem with this sort of culture is it's blame the government for everything, blame the police for everything, or blame the mainstream music industry. It's all their fault. But we're going to, sing about shanking our rivals, and we want to be respected for that. No, if you're going to behave like a criminal thug, I'm going to regard you as a criminal thug. And it just really angers me that people just can't see the obvious with this. It's toxic. I don't know how it could barely be called music. At least there's other rap that has a sort of melody to it, has some sort of sound. This stuff is just a noise. Now that might get into personal taste, but I think it's a noise. And yeah, I'm well aware that there's other genres promote drug usage, etc. But I do think that you will not find any other genre that promotes gang activity in the way that grime drill does. I challenge people to find, for example, pop music or rock music or classical music that promotes gang activity in the same way. You won't find it.